So after a pretty good free agency and trade period by the West Coast Eagles, we are seeing them progress and go forward. Of course, they're now moving on to the draft where they have a lot of big decisions. You know, originally it was kind of like they were going to select Willem Nersma and Cooper Duff Tyler with pick 1 and 2. But of course now Sullivan Roby has really jumped into the projections as a very, very good player and someone that they may potentially, of course, go and draft. Again, they've got the draft to, of course, worry about, but it does also look like they are really looking at the delisted free agency market to see if they can add a player or two to, of course, come in and overall help out. Again, one report we are hearing here by Josh Gabelich is saying that Tom Mitchell wants to play for a fourth club after being delisted by Collingwood. The 32-year-old is open to playing anywhere, including a move back to Perth if the West Coast Eagles pick up the phone. Now, don't get me wrong, is Tom Mitchell, has he played that well in the last year or two? No. Is there excuses for that? Yes, he's had about 897 different injuries, and a couple years before that, he had another, big batch of injuries as well, which got him moved on from Hawthorn. But the thing is, in between that time, he did have the 2023 year, which at 30 years old, he still proved that he is one of the best inside midfielders in the game when he's fully fit and actually healthy. And he had a 25 disposal per game year that actually helped Collingwood, of course, win a premiership and to be the best team ultimately in the league. Now, Tom Mitchell, from all reports, is the healthiest he's been since that year and is ready to go. But Collingwood, they already by far the oldest team in the game, and they wanted to cut back the age. They moved him on and they moved Mason Cox on. But I definitely believe there will be a team out there who is assessing a guy like Tom Mitchell, who is a pretty decent leader and still a really good inside midfielder when he's healthy, and thinking, look, if he's healthy this year, let's try and squeeze as much juice out of him as we can. Get a 2023 type of year. And then if he breaks down by the end of the year, then we can just overall move him on. And that's kind of what happened to Collingwood. He had an elite year in 2023. He started to break down as the year went on, and then he just had injuries for the next couple of years. But as mentioned, if he's as healthy as the 2023 year, which it is being said that he is, I think a team should 100% take the gamble on him. And I actually think West Coast would be a great reason for a lot of reasons. And I'm not going to say this just because I think, I'm saying because West Coast, it'd just be cool if they signed someone. No, I'm saying this because I genuinely believe Tom Mitchell would make a lot of sense for West Coast. And not only do I believe he would make sense for them, but I believe Camden Macintosh would make a ton of sense for them as well. And I believe that, both of these guys should be two guys they very much look at. Again, some of you guys may even call me out in the comments and say I'm a little bit, hypocritical, because I've previously said I think West Coast dramatically need to cut their age back over the last couple years, go, a little bit younger. But in terms of me also saying that, I said that they should be cutting the age back from, the leaders that they didn't have. So a guy like Liam Ryan, who was a 31-year-old guy who can add a lot of value to another team, who doesn't really have much leadership at all to the Eagles, I thought would have been a good idea to move on, because I think if you're going to have an older or a veteran guy, you need to have one who has leadership. Liam Ryan wasn't providing that. They had a couple other guys who weren't providing that, and they moved them on. Camden Macintosh and Tom Mitchell are a little bit different though. I think the Eagles desperately need some help in the midfield, and especially to give some help to a Harley Reid who constantly gets targeted. Again, when we look at the Eagles midfield, there are no good older veterans in there whatsoever. Tim Kelly is like the only older veteran in there, and not only has he been playing terrible footy and got pushed to the twos, but Tim Kelly doesn't seem to be a good leader, and his leadership definitely isn't valued by Andrew McQualter. I think it'd be a good idea to give a guy like Harley Reid, a Bo Allen or a Willem Dersma coming up, maybe even a Sullivan Roby coming up, all of those guys, I think it'd be great to give them an older player or two to really rely on and not only fall on them when they're having a bad game, but also seek leadership for them as the games go on. And Tom Mitchell would be great for that, because Harley Reid and a lot of these other young players have had to do a lot of the really hard work in there. That I watched this guy go and get the hard ball, then he's trying to create something on the outside, and he'll just get absolutely torn apart, and then the players will get into him, they'll rage bait him, and it just becomes a really shitty situation. But it would be cool if the Eagles brought in a Tom Mitchell who can do all the hard part and the rough inside ball game, and of course feed it out to a guy like Harley Reid, who I think should be more of that outside, dusty, Christian Petrarca creative player who have always had a Dion Prestia or a Clayton Oliver to rely on to get the hard ball. I think it would make sense for Harley Reid to be more of that outside player, save his body a little bit, and also not have to rely on himself to do 800 million things at once. But let a Tom Mitchell go in there, who is proven to be a great contested inside clearance player. Let him do all that work, and then Harley Reid can focus on his own game, which will be the outside. Getting the ball off a guy like Tom Mitchell, and then cooking and creating with that. Like, that's what Tim Kelly should be doing, but Tim Kelly does not do it, and it really does suck. So I think Tom Mitchell would be great for that, and it's just a guy that Harley Reid can fall on. You know, Camden Macintosh is good like that as well. Predominantly an outside player throughout his career, playing as a wing or a half-back. But throughout this year, he moved and played a bit more of an inside role, and honestly, he was even tagging Patrick Cripps, which is about as inside as you can bloody get. And he was really, really good for some of those younger Richmond players as well. Richmond had the same thing though, where they've had to cut back some of their older players like Collingwood did, and Richmond are going to be much more younger next year from what we are seeing. So I think West Coast, who are in desperate need for leadership and grunt on the inside, could really use a guy like Tom Mitchell and Camden Macintosh to come to their team, and I think it would make a whole lot of sense. I mean, Tim Kelly's unfortunately just not the answer, and I don't think he will be. He's gotten worse and worse every single year. Honestly, if I was Andrew McQualter, I would just bite the bullet and play him in the waffle and have a Tom Mitchell or a Camden Macintosh play over him. So even though that will be on freaking 3/4 less of the money, I'd still rather their efforts than some of the stuff I see Tim Kelly put up, and I'd rather their leadership from some of the stuff I've also seen Tim Kelly have. So I think that's the direction that they're going to go. Will they bring in both of them? Probably not, but they're going to assess it, and I think they're going to assess a guy like that to come in. You know, even a Devon Robertson, who has been playing VFL footy, he can be a pretty good inside guy as well, and he's still really young and could show something. I think they also brought him in to help a Harley Reid and some of those other guys in there too. So I think they've already got the one in Robertson. They're probably going to look for the two. Is it a Tom Mitchell or is it Camden Macintosh? I think Tom Mitchell, considering we're hearing reports here that it might be that. Camden Macintosh is a little bit younger though, also from the West, and has that Andrew McQualter connection. I don't really know where they're going to go with this, but I don't really think there's a wrong answer, other than the wrong answer being not signing one of them at all. Because I really don't want to see them rely on a Tim Kelly again, because no one wants that. Tim Kelly doesn't even look like he wants that. And I'm not hating, I'm saying the obvious, that I think Tim Kelly is very past it, unfortunately, and it'd be cool to see another guy like Tom Mitchell or Camden Macintosh, who are delisted now, honestly be given an opportunity to try and actually make something happen. But of course, I'd very much love to know all your thoughts and opinions on this in the comment section down below. Please make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for all latest AFL news and AFL content. Should the Eagles go and sign a Tom Mitchell or a Camden Macintosh, I'd very much like to know your thoughts and opinions. Or should they not? You know, subscribe to the channel for latest sports content. My gaming/movie channel will also be getting linked down below. Go check that out. And go check out my Instagram if you haven't already, which will also be linked down below. But yeah, as I was saying, please make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and comment. And I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.